Robert McGinnis is a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel. He's also the author of 8 books on national security and foreign policy. He joins us from Woodbridge in Virginia. Good to have you on the show, sir. When the president of the United States says that he has intelligence showing that President Vladimir Putin has made a final decision to invade Ukraine in the coming days, this is as serious as it gets.
Well, no doubt. Satellite imagery certainly indicates that there are bridges that are across rivers that didn't have bridges before. There are attack helicopters well forward. There are armor units in the tactical assembly areas. There are a host of signal intelligence likely that are suggesting what the commanders are saying to one another. And of course, there are other pieces of human intelligence that are suggesting that an attack is imminent. Otherwise, I don't think that he would broadcast that. So it's clearly a notification to Moscow that the world is watching. Then, of course, President Biden said 2.8 million people in Kyiv are innocent. And if you attack in there and start to slaughter people, the world's going to come down in a very hard way on Russia. Now, I would argue that this is something that's been planned for months, that Mr. Putin knows precisely what he has in mind. And he has the backing, interestingly, of President Xi in China. They met on the 4th of February. They signed a joint agreement that communicated clearly that the two are very close in terms of geopolitical ambitions. And I think that this is a true litmus test of Mr. Biden and the West.
Colonel McGinnis, Western intelligence sources are putting the Russian troop presence along the Ukrainian border as high as 190,000. In your experience as an Army commander, I mean, is this enough for the invasion of a capital city like Kiev, as President Biden put it, and you just mentioned, that lays almost 400 kilometers from the border?
Yeah, well, but the Belarus border is not that far away, 70-something miles. And in Belarus, we've seen helicopter movements, we've seen armor unit movements. Yes, if they choose to come in exclusively from the east and cross that long, relatively level ground, it could take a couple days. But coming in from the north, it's not going to take a couple days. And by the way, when the U.S. went into Baghdad, as you may recall, they didn't have that many troops, 190,000. Now, all of those are not combatants, but we believe they probably have in the order of 1,400 tanks, 3,000 plus infantry fighting vehicles, and thousands of artillery pieces, and of course, hundreds of attack helicopters, Su-25 air-to-ground capability, and a host of other capabilities. So the Russians are well equipped, and they're poised for an attack if they're given that order.
The Kremlin has released a statement saying that the president, Vladimir Putin, will be overseeing military drills this weekend. It will be involving some nuclear elements. This is going to affect the atmosphere, is it not?
Oh, there's no question about it. Now, that particular exercise was postponed from last October until now to end or begin at the time of the end of the Beijing Olympics. So the orchestration of this is very masterful. What Mr. Putin is doing is communicating to the West that he has more nuclear weapons and more ability to launch those weapons than the West does, frankly. And so that message will be heard. Now, I don't expect the Russians will use nuclear weapons. However, they will use cyber, and that cyber can be just as destructive, quite frankly, if used properly. Now, of course, the West is prepared for that, and this could become very hot very fast. Hopefully, we'll revert to diplomacy. After all, military threats often lead diplomats to try to figure out how to find a peaceful resolution. And so when Blinken meets next week with the minister there somewhere in Europe, they will probably discuss the same issues that Mr. Putin pushed back on in the recent letter back to Washington. And that is, No NATO for Ukraine, no weapons forward for NATO. And by the way, he wants to have a voice in the structure, the security structure of Western Europe. That's a hard task, but we'll have to wait and see if it happens.
And the Russian president has been saying all along that Russia's security concerns must be addressed. All right, Colonel McGinnis, pleasure having you on. Thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.